Welcome to Talent Experience Live, your weekly look at all of the hot topics in HR.
People are 28% more productive when they use vacation time.
Involving themselves very deeply in diversity and inclusion efforts.
Ramping up college recruiting and career fairs.
Artificial intelligence helps automate certain tasks.
50% more applications. How do you make your company culture still stand out?
What does that look like in this new virtual world?
Welcome everyone to another episode of Talent Experience Live. Appreciate you taking time away from Twitter, away from your television, away from the news, and joining us to talk about the hottest topics in HR, complete with interviews from leaders and, of course, my favorite, new HR tech. So this is covering everything that you need to know in recruitment, talent acquisition, and of course, talent management. But it doesn't stop here. We have a plethora of great content on all of our social channels. So be sure to subscribe to YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, whatever is your preference there. And tune in every Thursday at noon Eastern time to join me here. As always, we do love the comments in the chat. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, feel free to sound off. That's the beauty about being live. Even though we can't be meeting face to face, we can still get your comments. We can still read them. We can still flash them up on the screen. So definitely feel free to be active there. Our DMs are open, as I like to say. For those of you new to the program, I'm Devin Foster. I am your host. And today's topic is all around employee engagement in the time of COVID. As we all know, it's been a bit of a roller coaster for the past 8-9 months now. And actually, I found a study from Gallup that said employee engagement had been a steady metric since the year 2000. So rarely fluctuated at all. Then enter the 2020 year, and it has been a little bit hectic. The fluctuations, they say, were remarkable. In early May, employee engagement advanced to a new high, which was 38%. So I think that has a lot to do with the camaraderie that teams were putting together, all of the virtual happy hours we talked about, all of that new content. And then unfortunately, with the tragic killing of George Floyd in May, it dropped down to 31% and measured that way all the way up till mid-June, and now it's beginning to uptick again. So it's certainly all over the map, considering since 2000 it was pretty steady around there. And today's episode is all around how you can keep that employee engagement at an all-time high at your organization, and how you can really try and avoid some of those ups and downs. And today we have a special guest. We have Andy Reitmeyer, IRS Engagement Officer and Associate Director, to talk about this and how the IRS is dealing with employee engagement in the time of COVID. So without any more further hesitation, let's bring Andy on. Andy, welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm doing great, Devin. Thank you so much for having me. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. I feel a little bit underdressed. You dressed it up for me, but I think you look fantastic. So I'm envious on the inside. But thank you so much for joining us. As tradition around here, we always love to ask how people got to where they are in their position. And I know that there are countless children all around the globe who are just can't wait to work for the IRS. So my question is for you, was it the same way? Was this something that you, as soon as you were old enough to understand what a job was, said, I want to work as an engagement officer at the IRS, or did it kind of evolve? So how did you get to the position you're in today?
It's kind of an odd path. I was always kind of really intrigued by law and government as I was growing up. I know I was the cool kid, so to speak, thinking that. Went through undergrad, then actually went to law school. Realized in my third year of law school, wow, I don't like law at all. So that was a terrible time frame when you're invested. So I went through, I finished, I gave it a try, doing some mediation stuff. Wasn't really for me. And I said, okay, I clearly need a job and I need benefits. And I saw a job opening for a tax collector for the IRS. So I said I could probably do that for a few years. Applied, I was hired. I came on board, and I guess the rest has just been history for the past 17 years. Just moved all the way through the different ranks, and about 5.5 years ago, IRS created the Engagement and Retention Office, asked me to come over, help them build it, and I've been leading it since. So it's a crazy world how things happen, Devin.
It certainly is. I love hearing about everyone's journey because when we originally think about people's career paths, we think that it is just linear, that you go to law school, you're going to become a lawyer, you're going to grow up to fight legal battles, and everyone takes different twists and turns. And happy to hear that you seem excited about what you're doing at the IRS. So my first question for you is, what exactly does an engagement officer for the IRS do, and how can that be applied to CHROs and VPs of talent acquisition and talent management?
Okay, great. Yeah. So as the engagement officer, I'm kind of responsible, myself and a small team of 20 folks. We're responsible for all 80,000 plus folks at the Internal Revenue Service, making sure that they're coming to work, they're feeling the love, they're drinking the Kool-Aid, they're feeling really good about things and wanting to stay. It's kind of an uphill task, especially when you have a really large agency, but it gives us a great way to get a lot of feedback from folks. And, we take that to develop those high-level strategies for we say, okay, so, like every, large corporation organization or government entity, you have like the top picture, and you kind of, arc that over it. And then it's, how do we make it so that it's something personal for all those little, spheres of influence that folks have across the service.
It's awesome to hear that, especially the drinking the Kool-Aid analogy and keeping people excited. Because I know before this conversation, before we talked off the air, my opinion of the IRS wasn't necessarily the most happy. It wasn't sunflowers and daisies. It gets a bad rap. So keeping that camaraderie and that excitement around such an important aspect of government, I think is huge. Now, I imagine you mentioned you have a smaller team, but there are offices all across the nation and campuses. How has engagement changed since COVID with this new work from home environment, and how much more difficult is your job at the end of the day?
So prior to COVID, like I said, in classic government, very structured. Everything was well planned and put together. Then COVID came along, and it was like the bull in the china shop. Everything kind of real quickly fell apart. And, we started looking, saying, okay, we need to be flexible. We need to be able to adapt. And, luckily my staff, we are spread out all across the country. So we've been playing the virtual game for the past 5 years. So we're used to doing that. But we have those large pockets in the service that are really the production and process jobs that require you to be on site. So this change into the virtual environment, you could imagine if you had a huge percentage of folks that have never, woke up in the morning, had their cup of coffee and they were already at work, not leaving their house. So it was really a culture shock for a lot of folks. In those first few weeks, I'm just going to tell you, it was mayhem. Trying to get folks to be open-minded to something that was different. We have some folks that have been here for 30, 35, even we have some folks up to 50 years they've been with the IRS. So, and that's just amazing. And now imagine for 50 years, you've gone to an office every day. Now, all of a sudden, you may have to take this new laptop that you've never had before, open it up, and start working at home. So oddly enough, while folks were kind of in that, we don't know how to handle things, it was actually leadership that felt, the most, I would say, awkward in the new environment, because we realized we never really taught folks how to manage in the virtual environment. Who would have ever planned that, 2020, we had big plans. I don't think COVID was anywhere near the plans of what we wanted to do. So it was, shifting and adapting to, okay, we can't just be the feel good folks and push out what people need and talk about, getting feedback. We had to provide them real time things. So it was going out and giving them trainings. It was creating job aids and tools. One of them said how to virtually lead. That's really what we titled it. And we put it together in like almost cartoon format and sent it out to folks so that we could make this monumental piece of, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not sitting next to Jane Doe or John Doe. We had to make it so it was palatable and enjoyable. And let me tell you, for the first few weeks, it was quite the uphill battle.
Yeah, I mean, as a whole, humans are creatures of habit, right? So when you talk about individuals being, at your organization for 30, 40, 50 plus years, they're used to certain things, whether it be stopping at their local coffee spot every single day, chatting with John Doe about Monday Night Football being, Monday morning quarterbacks or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So there's changes, I think, drastically changed everyone, right? And management specifically, because it's tougher to have those conversations virtually, right? Especially if they are constructive or if they are anything else where you can't get that feedback. It's challenging for me, I know, dealing with conversations with coworkers at times because so much is lost when you're not in the same room. But overall, it sounds like you guys had to change things very quickly, act and turn on a dime. As the process has continued and as you've begin to grow into this work from home environment, have you done any checking up? Have you sent out any surveys or temperature checks to see what's working and potentially what isn't working?
Yeah, so great question, Dem. We actually completely changed our whole service model once COVID came aboard. So we were, like all other federal agencies, we have the Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey. It's the big once-a-year survey. It is the benchmark across all government that measures everything from, performance management, employee engagement, office safety, all these things. And that was kind of our go-to, our bread and butter with some, feedback sessions, different things we would do. When COVID hit, we realized really quickly that folks need an outlet to share not only what they're feeling, but what's working and what's not working. So we switched models and we dove headfirst into the pulse survey realm. And it was definitely different, when you're used to a 71 question annual survey, and now you're down to a 6 to 8 question survey that gets, blasted out to everyone. And you're really challenging that status quo that, a lot of long-term leaders fell into the comfort zone. Now you're asking folks open text questions so they can type their little hearts away on what they're thinking, feeling, and answering all these different things. And, it was challenging for folks, number one, to have the trust that, okay, we're going to tell you these things, but what are you going to do with it? So it was in April, we launched our first pulse survey. It was the first one of this magnitude that we had ever done. We had about 38,000 folks that said, okay, Andy, we're going to take you up on that challenge of telling us, how they're feeling, thinking. We didn't ask the traditional questions on a Likert scale. We, really liked giving folks a chance to tell us what they thought. And those open texts, they just started pouring out their hearts from if they unfortunately had family members who had passed away, or if they were struggling with taking care of children at home who now aren't in school while they're working. And they gave us just a lot of information. And we've kept those pulse surveys going now because it's every week we're able to see new things that are coming. And for the first 2 to 3 weeks when we were doing our pulse surveys, we were being reactionary. We were looking at the information. We were saying, okay, we didn't plan for that. That's really bad. We need to do something to fix that. And we're running up to our top level of leadership. Somewhere along the line, it really changed into where we are now. Everything is very proactive, where when we're sifting through each day, anywhere from 300 to 600, written comments that folks are putting in, because we say, what can we do to improve? How can we make your work experience better? And they just type away for that. Now we're able to say, I'm seeing a trend that's starting early. Let's try to come up with an intervention that can go in and mitigate this before it becomes a problem.
No, that's, this has affected everyone so differently. We did get a comment from Suchi. I apologize if I'm pronouncing that wrong. More power to the team for driving the change in employee engagement, staying agile for recouping processes virtually during the crisis. Again, more power to you. For those of you just joining us, this is Talent Experience Live. We are chatting with Andy Reitmeyer from the Internal Revenue Service, and this is all around employee engagement. Andy, one thing that you mentioned a little bit earlier, and I wanted to touch back on, was how it's traditionally a little bit more buttoned up at the IRS, right? And I think that is potentially a stereotype that may be a little bit accurate. I won't hold you to that. But when I think of really just work in general, it almost feels like those days of punch in at 9, punch out at 5, and go on with the rest of your life have kind of vanished at this point. I know for myself, I literally responded to Slack messages as early as 5:30 this morning, and 2 nights ago I was up till 7 responding to more. And it's happening differently because everyone's coping with different situations, whether it be looking after children at home, whether it be looking after maybe elderly family members or just family members in general and loved ones, and also now taking the dog out and doing all of those other things that typically you didn't have to account for. So you mentioned that you've had this feedback channel, and people have been expressing and pouring their hearts out there. How has the IRS really adapted to this new kind of work schedule as a whole?
So, I mean, you hit on a lot of those great topics, Devin, and I would say how we adapted was we learned flexibility. Most areas of government, there's a lot of hierarchy. There's a whole lot of structure. There's a lot of rules and regulations you have to go through. And I would say flexibility maybe was not always high on the list of things that we really, appreciated or valued. This showed us that we had to use flexibility. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to achieve our mission. And even worse, we would be negatively impacting employees. So it was things such as saying, look, we know typically, you might have the 9 to 5 job, but now maybe you have to help the kids load the Skype call for school or the Zoom call, or maybe you have to go and you have a loved one that you take care of and you have to go and help them. It was saying, look, get your work done. That's what we're concerned with, but don't feel like you have to be nailed down to this rigid schedule that we've always had or that you may have grown up with. And that was a big takeaway for us there. And I think another really big thing that came from it was increasing communication. There's always the idea that you don't just communicate for communication's sake. It's got to have quality. It's got to be meaningful. And I like to challenge that, because sometimes if someone is really in a bad situation, if you're feeling down, if you're scared, it doesn't have to be the prettiest message out there. But if you receive a message saying, we appreciate what you're doing, hang in there, you have every right to feel the way you do, we're here to support you, we're a team, we're a family, and we've been pushing that really hard. We're part of the IRS family. That is just something that's going to be more meaningful. Is it going to be a message that, is going to win a literature prize? Probably not. But it's something that's going to be there that is just going to resonate to know, hey, we're still with you. We're all in this together.
No, I love that idea of being a family, and it truly sounds like with your tenure with the Internal Revenue Service, the individuals that you mentioned who've spent 30, 40, 50 years there as well. It sounds like that culture is so strong and really drives the organization as a whole. Now, when it comes to, obviously you went through some changes there. You started off in a different role. I remember you telling me you were going to knock on doors originally, and now you're in your high castle, if you will, right? Talking about all the fun and good stuff at the IRS. When it comes to internal mobility as a whole, is there an opportunity for individuals at the Internal Revenue Service to look at new roles as they pop up? Obviously, that was something easier to do when everyone was on campus, when you could bump into someone at the lunchroom, bump into someone, on the elevator, or my favorite, washing your hands in the bathroom and have a conversation about, hey, what department are you in? Oh, that's great. I'm really interested in that. So since we're all work from home and the only person that we're bumping into on the way to the kitchen is our loved ones or our dog, how are people moving throughout the organization, and where do they go to look for that?
So actually, we do have a fair bit of folks who are taking that next step in their career. or maybe they're just trying to perfect a craft of what they're doing, but they do have that ability. We still have, positions that are available, needs in different parts. Sometimes it might be a promotion. Other times it might just be a lateral move to come over and help us out for 4 or 6 months. But one of the things that really gets to why we're still able to do this is it's understanding that shift from the line of sight, where I, as a boss, I need to be able to walk out of my office and directly see you. And if I don't, oh no, this is bad. I've lost the quote control that we have. We've switched into that environment that, we don't always need to be co-located for everything we do. And when you get beyond that, it must be in this space. And we're only going to look at folks in this area here. So unless you want to geographically move and uproot family or whatever, you're out of luck with that. By looking at more things with how we can do things virtually and use technology, it expanded the talent pool for us, where now folks who may have never been on the radar for a certain job or a way to do things you're now looking at them. And we also do a great job where, we've realized that in the past, everything was very siloed. If you were in this work stream, you might not have known about this one over here. Now it's breaking down those silos, doing more education outreach, more awareness, and celebrating. That's the biggest thing. Celebrating on our intranet and other things, successes of these office, and really giving a taste of here's what we do and here's why, your little pocket is just as important as mine, and we all lead to success.
Now, Andy, I would probably be let go if I didn't mention that Phenom does offer an internal mobility platform. So I want to be sure to say that. But it's interesting that you bring up that point around, people having different skill sets and maybe be pursuing passion progress. I was on a webinar yesterday, and the idea popped into my head that during this time of COVID, some individuals have had the benefit of pursuing passions, whether it be baking, whether it be writing or graphic design or photography or things like that. And whatever it may be, the opportunity to see what's available within the organization, even if it is for short term, or long term, getting that exposure is truly, I think, valuable and really boosts the employees because it gives them that opportunity to celebrate some of these things that they are truly passionate about. Now, Andy, I'm going to ask you a tough question. Obviously, hindsight is 2020. When it comes to looking back at the COVID situation as a whole, what is one thing that you wish you could have done differently, maybe to prevent a little bit of burnout that inevitably happens in every organization, or lack of motivation, or some of these changes? And you can't take the easy way out and say, stop COVID in general. You do have to say something, but what would that be? What change would you make?
I think the change I would make, I'm going to be self-reflective, Devin.
Yeah.
I think for me, sometimes you can over-involve yourself in a process, and you can take on a personal responsibility that might be too much. So for myself, I remember those first 4 or 5 weeks of COVID, it was meeting 7 days a week, sometimes working, 12-hour days and just running myself down. And I saw that my staff and other folks around were kind of, looking to me to lead by example. So I was setting a terrible example of work-life balance and those important things. And, while we started to see success, I burned myself out. I burned out my team. We started hearing about burnout coming from all around the country. And it was understanding that, sometimes if you step back, you get more by saying, things are the way they are. We will get to it. We will fix it. But instead of pushing the work thing, tell me how you're feeling. You have every right to feel the way you do. And why don't you take a break? Why don't you do what you got to do to center yourself? And I wish that's something. Now, I didn't probably learn that until end of May when I had nothing left in the tank. I wish that's something, end of March, early April, that I would have known, and I could have been out there spreading. We have 9,000 or so leaders across the IRS. And when we interact with them and share all these different tips and tools, and we do webinars and different things where we're giving them all these ideas, I wish that was in the arsenal, where we could have said from the beginning, let your human side come out. Just be who you are and be human.
No, that's important. There's a ton of statistics around how vacation time has been down throughout 2020, whether people have 2 weeks, whether they have 3 weeks, or unlimited. It's down all around. And when you're not in the office, you don't get to see that kind of exhaustion on people's faces. Even though nobody wants to admit that they're exhausted, you don't have that opportunity, as you mentioned, you ran out of gas, to say, oh, the gas light's on here, maybe I should pull off the road. Maybe somebody should take this Friday off, or this Monday off, or take an extended weekend and come back with a little bit more energy. So that's hugely important, is to really have those conversations, ask how individuals are doing, and a real human temperature check rather than just a work temperature check on where are we with this project, where are we with this project. Now, Andy, before I let you go, I do want to give you the opportunity to potentially promote anything that you're doing at the Internal Revenue Service, a place to go for more information if people potentially want to ask you a question or learn more about it, and also the fact that, does working for the IRS help you get audited less?
Well, I can tell you it's probably the other way around.
Okay.
We have a higher standard of ethics. So, if we're enforcing the rules, we got to play by them a little bit more. I'm not going to talk about any personal experience with that. But I just want to say, one of the things that, I love about what we do here is how we're putting the people element into things. And, we didn't do this enough, but we came out with a mission statement. We said, this is what employee engagement is at the IRS. We want to help our folks understand and celebrate who we are, what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. And we want to do that by embracing what we call our 4 pillars of engagement. And that is the leaders leading by example, leaders developing folks in every conversation, leaders who are listening, and I'll be blunt, talk less, listen more. Don't worry about what you want to say or how you're going to look. And then the final one is supporting folks. And it's not just, let me get you the tech support, let me get you the on-the-job support. It's knowing that sometimes folks need that shoulder that they need to lean on. And as a leader, it doesn't matter where you work, you need to be that shoulder sometimes that folks can lean on. So I would encourage anyone, if you go onto usajobs.gov and you see positions that are open for the Internal Revenue Service, it is a great place to work. I can tell you that I am working hard to make it one of those best places to work. And really, I think you will be shocked when you see the family values and the mission that we have here. So I think that's pretty much it, Devin.
Awesome. Andy, thank you so much for taking the time to join the show today. Can't tell you how much fun this was. I hope I didn't offend you with any of my little jokes, but after 17 years, I'm sure you've heard most of them already. But I wish you the best. Stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the spirits up at the IRS. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thank you so much. And Devin, you're the first person to ever say you had fun talking to the IRS. Thank you so much.
That might be true. That might be true. We'll see you later. All right.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Andy Reitmeyer with the IRS talking around employee engagement. We are not done yet here on Talent Experience Live. We have the new segment that we introduced last week around customer success stories. So don't go anywhere. We are going to bring on Natalie McKnight with one of those great stories to hear how employee engagement is changing during this time of COVID. And it's not a one flip of the switch fix. So Natalie, we'll bring you on.
Hey, Devin.
How are you, Nat?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I am on cloud 9 right now. I had a lot of fun during that last conversation and learned a tremendous amount. So exciting stuff. But I know you have a great story as well. So I'll hand the floor over to you to chat a little bit about some customer success.
Yeah, absolutely. So as everybody knows, here on the customer success team, one thing that we like to do is really celebrate when our customers see really great results. We had a great one this week that I wanted to share on the show, which is that we're working with a really large retailer in the UK and internationally. And they came to us, they went live in January of this year, and they came to us with a relatively unique challenge for their business, which was, they don't really have issues promoting and getting applicants for certain jobs, but their technology jobs, they had a really specific challenge there. So when they went live in January, it was really just for their technology site, and they were really looking to start driving more interactions, more engagement, and also just getting data, period, to pull information together to understand, where are people coming from a traffic perspective, and where can they do better in regards to performance. So, and a lot of that was just increasing brand awareness for these technology roles versus just focusing on marketing and sales roles. So, we were able to put together year to date some data, and this is some of the stuff that we got, which I'm super excited about. So since January, we've been able to increase their site visits by 4 times. We've also been able to increase their direct traffic by 4 times. And 33% of that traffic is actually coming directly to their technology roles. So that's gigantic right there. 3 times more page views. They're getting 7 times as many leads. And they have they're so close to getting 10,000 qualified candidates who've already been included in email campaigns, which email campaigns, if you ever talk to me as a customer, is one of my favorite things to review. And then 68% of their applications that are started on the site close to completion. And in the chatbot, it's even better. It's at 77%. So, and previously that number was 49%. So we were able to increase that almost by a quarter. That's absolutely insane. And this is all in less than a year. And the very last one that I love is that we were able to significantly reduce their time to apply. So before it was almost 12 minutes to actually apply to a job for this retailer. And now it's 7 minutes, which is crazy. So super, super awesome. Congrats to this customer. Congrats to Louisa, who is the customer success manager working and partnering with this organization, really doing a great job in strategizing with this customer on, ways that we can really have an impact just with the career site, the CRM, and those strategic campaigns.
Natalie, that is awesome stuff. Reducing the application time by 4 minutes. You can make a bag of popcorn in just about that amount of time. So that is truly impressive. That's what I would do with my extra time after I filled out an application, is I would immediately go celebrate with a bag of popcorn. But hearing this engagement and how much it's really skyrocketed is truly important. And I think it touches on a lot of what Andy had to say. Making things easier, making them accessible is only going to help organizations in the long run. So thank you once again. Exciting to hear that not only are we seeing success with engagement with the IRS here in the US, but also in the UK. Honest, I love a good British accent here every now and again.
Stop it right now. Draw the line there, Devin.
Exactly. We are running out of time with that, but I will let you go, Nat. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks once again for joining us, and thank you at home for joining us on Talent Experience Live. We will see you next week talking all around military hiring. Another great customer success story going to come there. But tune in then, 12 noon Eastern time on Thursday. See you soon.